Here we are today. I am checking out heavy gear yet again. Last night's session was terrible. As you saw, I was in the graphics options section trying to make sure that I had all the settings correct. Now, I did finally go over to the gear bay, and finally the gears showed up. There's two available based on the basic arch types. And of course, you can swap out components and things. So you see here, I immediately went to Paint to see what I could do to customize it. And they give you a bunch of materials. I don't really know how they affect properties, and there's really not much information provided. It's a very complex interface with lots of stuff. Not much user feedback when you're doing it. Not necessarily a good thing. And getting good colors was a challenge. And when I took a look at another gear, when I finally did get into the game, the visual effects are not so hot. And I think that's because the texturing patterns are too small. If you're doing like a video film or something inside the engine for capture, I imagine that it comes out pretty awesome because you have the ability to slow down and focus on the detail. When you're in the game playing, those small details are lost. The patterns need to be larger, realistically, I think. So here I am dipping around with the colors, seeing what I can do. And of course I break it. There's a couple errors. Like you'll notice that the primary material for the base, there's no primary color there, right? And then there's a secondary and a primary, and the secondary is missing here. And I don't know if that's because that's the current state of their paint scheme thingamajig, or if that's because it's another broken UI element because it's essentially alpha software. I don't know that I'd go as far as calling it beta. Yeah. So here we go. We're looking at a couple things here. You see, you've got different sections for transparency as well. I couldn't quite get that to work, and it resulted in a completely awesome bug. Right. I also managed to crash things when I tried to apply some stuff at some point. But this is realistically where you're supposed to customize your gear types, and when you can purchase additional gear types, swap out components, change your weapon loadouts, all that stuff. And we'll get more into that in a minute when we get to the next portion of the video. And as you can see here, I've reached the bug. When I'm trying to apply a transparency or whatever that thing is there, as soon as you hit this button with an alpha, and you're supposed to drag it to some sort of bar, which is completely unintuitive, womp. It nuked OBS. All right, and I was like, what's going on? The app itself continued to run fine. It's running fine underneath there. But OBS, wherever it's pulling the data from the overlay, dorked. So I tried to dip with it a couple times, mess around, and eventually you get another different pattern added in there by clicking on things, and then finally it crashed when I tried to jump into a game to see if I could get that to restart the blit, wherever the hardware layer is accessing. So that didn't work out so hot. Again, the blitting layer or whatever it was, just nah. So get back in, and I finally get in, and I realize I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm trucking around. I catch two people in the middle of a fight, and I have no way to help. I don't understand anything about what I'm doing. You would think that the left mouse button would fire something, but that's not the control scheme they have set up. You have something like 8 different keys for your weapons, and they can be fired together, but you have to press 8 keys at once because of the different things you can store. So you can whip out different weapons over time. for your fight. The pistols have apparently unlimited ammunition. Rocket pods don't. And we'll get into that in a minute. But as you can see here, you can zoom in. That's like the the roll thing on the mouse. And then the friendly who just got murdered, his gun is still floating in the air. And so I'm trying to jump and do whatever. It essentially, nothing happens. I'm on roller skates here. Which, the animations, I guess, are alright for that. But the colors don't really pop on anything, and the collision's a little weird sometimes. But, yeah, this is the gameplay. Oh, and then, see, we lost. How? I don't know. And I wasn't even sure that there was like a counter or anything going, but apparently there is. And here's me confused, like, what the hell's going on? Because there's part of the radar and the heads-up display is still visible. Bug. Eventually, I get stuck, and I can't figure out what the hell's going on. And it turns out if you go prone in this game, you're hosed, because the prone button no longer works. You can lay down, but you can't get back up. You just lay there, waiting for somebody to come murder you. Or until you quit. Several of the buttons don't seem to work. So eventually I get in, and I restart things and whatever, and I actually get into a match after customizing my mech. So here we go with customization, and you basically have all these hard points, and you can attach things to the hard points, various sizes. Of course, I'm sure what they're doing is they're slowing you down or something to that effect. There's a negative cause to having so much weight. It's been a long time since I played a Gears game. So you customize your mech, you save the loadout, and then you go into battle. Maneuverability is interesting. If you fall in the water, you can drown, whatever. And it took a while before somebody joined the game, because there's not that many people playing. And this guy, we had a nice chat. We talked a little bit. 'Cause if you notice here, this is the first person view. This is the cockpit view, as opposed to the third person view, which is useful for, I guess, aiming for getting a more realistic view. The game is apparently designed to be played with a gamepad. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But, so I've got basically just two weapons. I got a single rocket pod and a pistol. And I managed to blow his head off. There's no real targeting or anything, so it doesn't, at least not to my knowledge, so there's no real way to tell how damaged an opponent is, so you can target specific components. It's just you kind of shoot until they go down. Eventually he killed me a couple times, and we chatted a little bit about what works and what doesn't. And it was nice. And then the game looks alright when it's full lit like this, but you can see there's still a lot of graphic artifacts and things. It's still definitely very beta, and still under construction. I don't know that it's worth $30 at this point. I wouldn't recommend spending $30 on it. I'm glad I got a key for free, so that I can try this out and let anybody who cares check it out and make a decision for themselves. But I find at this point the gunplay to not be terribly satisfying. The controls are a little too stiff for me at this point. There's not a clean way to tell what happens, what the drawbacks are for certain weapons. And I don't know that there actually are at this point. There may be. I'd have to go look at the documentation. But it's not apparent in the interface. And they tried to cram a bunch of stuff into the interface, so I know they're thinking about it. But they're not really thinking about it in the way of usability at this point. In the way that you want 90% of your users to be able to figure it out just by looking at it. They're just getting the options in there, which does them no good service in the long run. I understand it's beta and everything, but user interface can help overcome glaring deficiencies like the gameplay, because that can be tightened up over time. People expect gameplay to get better. But the UI is just one of those things that sticks in people's craws. I mean, over in like MechWarrior Online, they've been through like 4 or 5 iterations. They keep changing it. But it was one of those big community things where people screamed and howled forever. But I certainly think it's worth a look for most people, but I don't know that it's worth the initial purchase at this point, especially you're basically buying into alpha software that crashes on the regular. If you're into that because you want to be first, boots on the ground, good on you. As a gamer who's interested in actually playing a game and enjoying it, it's still a little too raw for me. It really is. I certainly think it's got potential, but it's not there for me yet. Anyway, I hope this was informative. I'll probably do 1 or 2 more videos. I'm going to wait until the next big patch before I do anything more on this one, I think. And we'll see what's going on from there. Have a wonderful day, and happy gaming.